Anthony, 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 A-N-T-H-O-N-Y, Anthony, A-N-T-H-O-N-Y, Anthony, 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 Anthony. Anthony.
Hello, it's just gone 12 midday. Welcome to Unity News on this Monday the 5th of September, which could be quite a historic day, but let's see what happens on that. Welcome to the Anthony Webber Perspectives programme on Unity News, which is a summary of news and issues of the day from my perspective, from the Unity News perspective. But anyway, all with a slight difference because it's truthful and honest, open and transparent, which you don't get with the old mainstream media. Anyway, if you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at Tony_Twitter, _ Webber, and on Facebook, Anthony David Webber, and also at National Alia UK. So, it's the 5th of September, it's the 248th day of 2022, and we've got 117 days left of the year. It's the 36th Monday of the year and the 36th week of the year, so we're getting ever closer to Christmas. So happy birthday today to those who are of the Virgo star sign, and that's from August the 23rd to September the 22nd. And if you're a Virgo, you'll know you're logical, practical and systematic, and an earth sign. And I particularly remember this star sign because my deceased mother was September the 7th. So well done to Virgos whose birthday it might be today. Anyway, let's go on to what the issues are today. We've got an update on the Tory leadership election, an update on my story on the prescription charges, what special days are today, the woke agenda we've had for the last few years, free speech, update on Unity News, when people in the freedom movement let the side down, a bit more about the Tory leadership results, the parliamentary debate on COVID-19 vaccine safety, the state of the NHS, a number of other news snippets, the campaign for the UK to be neutral in the Ukraine, an update on the terrible migrants and immigration situation, an update on the strike situation, the party conferences, a number of campaigns which are going on at the moment, Operation Overreach, Drop the Restrictions campaign, and then some more update on energy prices, something on the mismanagement of the economy which is going on at the moment, and the hypocrisy which has gone on regarding Afghanistan, and finally the media obsession with Ukraine and the biased point of view which is coming across on that. So let's look at this Tory leadership election. We're going to get the results at 12:15 today. Many people think it will be Liz Truss, correctly the Right Honourable Liz Truss. Let's hope that if she gets it, she will be honourable in office, but we will see. But at the end of the day, we don't know the results till they come in. But we've had a pretty dismal last few weeks where, you know, these debates have been almost like watching sixth formers debates. They've been of such poor quality that even a number of leading Conservatives have said that this contest has actually damaged the Conservative Party. And I think that's true from our own perspective. If we look at it individually, do we think it's helped or hindered the Conservative Party? And it just seems that you know, they've got 358 odd MPs, but you know, you would have thought they would have had some better quality people to put forward, but for some reason the Conservative members just were left with these two, and that's the way things go in politics, and you know, that's the way the country's going to have to deal with things. It's only a reminder that the Prime Minister has near presidential powers, yet the Prime Minister is not elected by the people of this country. It's elected by the members of the party, which so happens to have the majority of seats in the House of Commons. So that is certainly an argument to perhaps have the monarchy role more in a ceremonial type role, and have an elected president to take over the presidential type powers, which prime ministers over the years seem to have taken over. But anyway, going back to the candidates and the situation with that, anyone who's had a look at the pronouncements they've both made in the campaign and over the last year or so, and their actual actions, they both come across as globalists who basically support globalist vested interests rather than the interests of the British nation and the British public. But we can be wrong, so let's see what happens on that. But I think one of the problems was with this candidate selection that if somebody wanted to stand and they were an MP in the Conservative Party, they had to get 20 named fellow Tory MPs to propose them. Now, that's not very easy to achieve when a number of people had committed to other candidates. If not, even if they hadn't actually put their names behind them, they had said that they would vote for them. So it was almost mission impossible for some new, perhaps bright newcomers to put their names forward. And I still go back to what I always say. I believe in what the Electoral Reform Society put forward, that in any election situation you shouldn't need any nominations at all. It should be up to the electors to decide who they think is suitable. But what we had with the Conservative Party is we had the Conservative Party hierarchy effectively deciding who could stand, or certainly something close to that, which is not really a very sort of acceptable situation, particularly when the successful candidate is going to have so much power. So yep, it's not a good situation at all. And just having a look at some of these comments coming in, so let's have a few more please, and let's get on to the next item, because I'll be coming back to the leadership election when the results come through. But let's have a look at this situation regarding prescription charges, which I mentioned last week, where I said that all of the UK, Northern Ireland, Wales and Scotland have free prescription charges for everyone, but in England that doesn't apply. And 90% of prescriptions are actually free in England because of various exemptions, students, children, pregnant women, over 60s and so on. But then you've got a big group of people, hard-working people who might be hard-pressed for money, who are having to pay for their prescriptions. And it actually would cost about 600 million to make sure those were free. Now, it sounds a lot, but then when you discover that only, I think it was yesterday, Boris Johnson committed 648 million into a new nuclear reactor, which we know from nuclear power it's very, very costly indeed. It was something which I remember going back a couple of years, UKIP and the Green Party both agreed that one particular nuclear power plant shouldn't go ahead because of the cost factor. It was going to cost so much for the consumer. But anyway, it's not just the cost, it's the danger. So we've got a situation, because of government policies, they're working against their own green agenda, because nuclear power is certainly not green. Whatever anyone says, it's not green. But anyway, I just thought I would mention, how the government allocates our taxpayers' money. Do they allocate it in the right direction? I don't think so. And I think if we look back to this so-called government levelling up policy, we've got a glaring example with prescription charges where 3 of the home countries in the UK get free prescription charges and 1 country doesn't. Now, that's hardly a fair levelling up policy. Anyway, on a more light-hearted note, what special days are there today on the 5th of September 2022? Well, it's National Be Late for Something Day. And I thought, should I be late for my programme today? And I thought, no, that isn't me. I sort of wouldn't want to do that. But it's all about taking time for yourself. As individuals, we should be late and smell the roses. Well, yes, that would suit a lot of people, but and I certainly agree with taking time for yourself, but maybe I'll do that after the programme and not mess anyone else around. So anyway, but there's your chance today. Be late for something today, but I would say don't do it if you're going to upset people. It's also World Samosa Day. For those who love the wide range of fillings you can get with samosas. National Cheese Pizza Day. Now, I absolutely love cheese pizzas, so that would be a good excuse for me to sort of gorge myself a little bit, even though I'm trying to actually lose a little bit of weight. But would you believe basic cheese pizza it used to be a food for the lower masses, so to speak. So I must be amongst the lower masses then if I love my cheese pizza. But there we go. It's National Mouthguard Day today. It's mouthguards have many uses, but primarily for sport to protect your teeth. All I can say is I wish I had been wearing one when I got some of my teeth knocked out in a hockey match, but there we go. It's also National Teachers Day, and I must admit, when my children were growing up, I always had the greatest admiration for the teachers. So great profession, as long as you're not in the woke profession, so to speak. It's also UN International Day of Charity. Well, I suggest we have changed that to the Day of Charity for people who have been hard hit in the UK, because we're getting hit harder and harder every day by government actions and policies. But what happened on the 5th of September back in time? Would you believe 1666, the Great Fire of London ended and 13,200 houses were destroyed and 8 people were killed. And in 1698, the Russian Tsar, Peter the Great, imposed a tax on beards. Anyway, won't go into that, but just a couple of many things which happened on the 5th of September in the past. Anyway, the month of September, which we just started, is a month for many things. National Suicide Prevention Month, so if there's anyone you feel is down, help them before they get too down. National Piano Month. Now, I got great admiration for people who can play the piano, but I'll, you know, sort of just have to keep on admiring because I haven't got those qualities. It's Sepsis Awareness Month, and we know that is very, very dangerous. Read a New Book Month. About time I had the time to do that. I really think it's good for all of us. Sourdough September, for those who like that. Now we've got Friendship Month. So this is all about spending more time with friends and appreciate them more, and maybe rekindle old friendships. You know, sometimes we, you know, don't appreciate friends as much as we should do when they've been so supportive. You know, so perhaps it's an opportunity to be supported back. National Honey Month it is, and I absolutely love honey. National Chicken Month, I'll go with that as well. National Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. Now, yes, that's sort of very sad, but what we do need to do is have more awareness of the more natural treatments which are available to stop cancer and combat it. You know, perhaps that's something I'll do that on a future programme. It's National Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month. Again, the same applies there. Now, for those who are good at sewing, it's National Sewing Month. And for those who absolutely love their cats, it's Happy Cat Month. So make sure your cat or cats or pussies are well looked after this month. Now, be prepared because it's a National Preparedness Month, and it's National Card Library Sign-Up Day for, you know, local libraries, even though they've had cuts, they're well worth using. There's Pulmonary Fibrosis Awareness Month, Shake Month, which is all about not shaking people, but milkshakes, and Hunger Action Month. Well, we're certainly going to need that in the UK with the way the government is treating its own citizens at the moment. And just a little bit of advance notice for tomorrow, Tuesday the 6th, that's actually when the new Prime Minister is, you know, sworn in by Her Majesty the Queen at Balmoral. It's also National Coffee Ice Cream Day, absolutely love that, I must admit. National Read a Book Day, Fight Procrastination Day. Oh, we certainly need a number of politicians to stop procrastinating, I must admit. And various other things, but on Wednesday, and I'm going to stop at Wednesday, National Salami Day, National Beer Lovers Day, yes please, I hope there's some festivals on. Superhuman Day, well, that's an interesting one. National Bar Book Day, and anyway, one or two others which I won't go into, but that's just a flavour. Now, what is happening with the woke agenda? Because we had debate with the Conservative leadership contest about complaining about woke issues. Now, let's actually have a look at the situation. We've had this accelerated woke agenda for some years. It's got worse over the last couple of years, but these Conservative leadership contenders would act as though they're opposition MPs, that it isn't something which has happened in their term of office. Well, let's just look at the facts. You know, we've had a steadily increasing woke agenda since the Conservative Party took office in 2010. Yes, it was starting before then, we can blame Labour as well, but what were these MPs doing in the 12 years they've been in office since 2010? Because we had 3 Prime Ministers, David Cameron, 2000 to 2016, Theresa May, 2016 to 2019, Boris Johnson 2019 until today. So all these terrible things, the changing of the society, the suppression of all sorts of things which are dear to us, the promotion of things which are not dear to us, and they've all happened under Conservative Prime Ministers, and you know, to be fair, they've happened under these leadership contenders. So it's no good them saying they're against it when they've been behind the agenda all along. But anyway, let's see. Let's see whoever is the new leader, whether they actually change things. But I somehow doubt it. You know, you've got Conservative MPs blaming other people, blaming civil servants, etc. They're the ones in charge. They're the ones who give the orders. It's absolutely crazy that they've got the gall to actually blame other people. Anyway, now I'm going to talk about the subject of free speech. Now, we know that Unity News has been in the forefront of promoting free speech, and we've appealed for financial help, and we still do. If anyone has not done their best to help with Unity News, please do so. But Unity News, we all believe in free speech, and we will defend those who do, and that ranges anyone from Julian Assange to all sorts of other people. You know, as long as people are not talking lies, but you know, the people we support are just putting facts across, and you should be entitled to put facts across. Whereas we have a situation with the old mainstream media where they're putting things across as facts when they're not. But you should at least have the right to challenge the old mainstream media, but at the moment you don't. We need more people to stand up for free speech, and I was very pleased that Peter Hitchens, in his Mail on Sunday column, stood up again for the second time for British citizen Graham Phillips, who has been basically treated deplorably by the Foreign Secretary Liz Truss, who has actually sanctioned him because his views on the Ukraine-Russian conflict are not satisfactory as far as she's concerned. Now, anyone who's checked on what he's said, you know, in all fairness, he hasn't said anything outlandish. He's simply reported the facts as he sees them on the front line. But we're now having a situation where only the government point of view is allowed. Now, that actually is very, very, very dangerous, and I would like to see more of the so-called left-wing liberals and so on, who supposedly believe in free speech. I'd like them standing up for people like Graham Phillips, and there are others as well. But you know, Unity News has done exceptionally well in that respect. But many, many more people do need to do that. And going back to Unity News, look at the exposés Unity News has done. I mean, I've helped in these, the expose of the globalist socialist don't pay organisation, enough is enough, but doing so in a constructive way, because we've offered alternatives for people to go and support. So we don't have a sort of negative attitude at all. Anyway, so right. Hopefully that somebody can put some comments, because it looks as though the comments have stopped. So I'm just trying to hopefully everything is coming across, but I got a slight panic then, thinking that the output wasn't getting to you, the viewers. Anyway, I just thought I'd mention something about, sometimes we get situations when people on what we see as our side let us down. And I think, we just have to accept that will happen, that some people will say, 50% of things we agree with, and then they start saying things which we don't agree with. And I think one example of that is Katie Hopkins. I mean, a lot of us have enjoyed her videos, but then a few weeks ago she started promoting the Don't Pay organisation, and she's just released another video doing exactly the same, and ignoring the fact that a major factor in the cost of energy crisis is the government's Ukraine policy. Now, I get very concerned about any individual or any organisation purportedly supporting freedom when they, in effect, try and blame other people for what is the government's fault. And the interesting thing is that if you look at the last leadership debate, which happened on LBC at Wembley on Wednesday, both the leadership contenders admitted that the Ukraine policies were affecting the energy prices, but we had to suffer for their glorious policies. So, it's all there in black and white. Even the leadership contenders actually admit that. So, anyway, just trying to see if there's any messages coming through, but I will carry on. It may well be that we're having a problem with the messages situation. Right, now the next thing is this is to do with a freedom movement success story, and many of you remember last week that I mentioned that the parliamentary petition, over 107,000 of us signed successfully to get a parliamentary debate on COVID-19 vaccine safety, was successful, and it's going to be debated on the 19th of September. Now, Unity News team have got well behind that, and we are organising an event where we will be lobbying the MPs, and we'll be down there doing that, and we'll also be doing some socialising, particularly afterwards. And whatever freedom organisation you're from, or whether you're not individually, you're all welcome to come down, because the issue of COVID-19 vaccine safety is absolutely paramount, and we must make sure that these things are properly investigated. So there will be this debate to set up an independent public inquiry into COVID-19 vaccine safety. Now, what we will be doing, because I've been working very closely for some weeks with Alex McFarlane, who was the main person who actually signed the petition, on presenting facts to MPs, and most of these facts we're going to make available to everyone, so they will certainly be on Unity News, and Alex and one of his colleagues, Mike Marshall, and other people have put together a huge amount of evidence which is pretty damning about the COVID-19's vaccines situation. Now, what we do want is people who have further evidence, either individually or through their organisations, or they've got family or friends who have this information, please send it through, and we will add it to what we're putting to MPs. But in addition to that, please write to MPs, your own MPs, and say, could they please attend this debate? Now, we've already written to the MPs, but that, we know through experience, is not sufficient. It is much better if individuals actually write to their MPs and say, as a constituent, we would be grateful if you can have an open mind and attend this debate. Now, many people will know, listening, that there is a COVID-19 sort of policy public inquiry, but the joke is that the terms of reference were agreed by the outgoing Prime Minister Boris Johnson. A ludicrous situation, because is he going to want to have anything too damning investigated which could implicate himself? So, not surprisingly, this inquiry does not include COVID-19 vaccine damage. This is why this parliamentary debate is so important, particularly when they're rolling out the vaccine, the COVID-19 vaccines, as part of the child vaccination programme. They're rolling out yet more boosters to the rest of the population. So the issue of COVID-19 vaccine safety and no coercion and having proper informed consent is absolutely and completely vital. So your help in this, one, in turning up on Monday the 19th of September, is very, very important indeed. And you know, what I can say is we'll be meeting from 12 midday, and we will be delivering a petition both to the Westminster HQ of the NHS and to 10 Dowding Street to the new Prime Minister. So there'll be a lot happening before the actual debate takes place at 4:30 in the afternoon, and basically it's the only parliamentary petition being debated on that day, so that is actually very, very helpful from that point of view. So you know, speak to your friends and so on, and see if you can arrange coming down to outside Parliament to help with the lobbying of MPs, meet with fellow freedom fighters, and also celebrate, because we've actually had a lot of successes. We've got a lot of people, quite often they're genuine, but quite often they're infiltrators, who knock the successes we've had and act as though we haven't achieved anything, whereas in fact what the freedom of movement has achieved has been a huge amount. Anything from when we had 1 million people on a march to all the many activities and campaigns which have gone on throughout the country. So well done, and here's an opportunity to celebrate that, but also to start campaigns for the coming months, because there's going to be some hard fights ahead in that respect. So these things are very, very important indeed. So in line with this COVID vaccine situation, you might remember that the NHS really prioritised that, their staff doing the COVID-19 vaccines rather than other things, GPs doing that as well, and now we've got a situation where the government's giving an extra bonus to GPs to get more of these COVID-19 vaccines out. So these are things which we need to challenge, because at the end of the day, these so-called vaccines are not going to be considered for official MRHA approval till 2023, which is well over a year away. So these things we've got to really fight hard on to protect our fellow citizens. But I mentioned last week that I was disappointed with Steve Barclay, the new Department of Health political secretary, and he's already said he's going to import thousands of people on visas to fill the staff shortages. So another Conservative betrayal of immigration. But basically, how's the staff situation come about? Well, they got rid of a lot of staff because they were forcing them to have the COVID-19 vaccines, and to be quite frank, staff do need to be treated better, and they do need to have better work conditions and better pay, certainly in key areas. But we've got the staff sometimes do get demoralised with the political running of the NHS, particularly prioritising certain things. So like when we had the COVID situation, millions of operations and appointments were put back or cancelled, and that's hardly helping the NHS to be good. But you've also got a situation where there's increasing privatisation. And sometimes I think with the NHS, it's like the government thinks if it moves, let's privatise it. So you've got a number of, say, I'll give you one example, X-rays and CT scans and so on. In some areas they're privatised, so of course it's more difficult to get your CT scan or X-ray. Oh, but the same firm who's doing these is also doing private CT scans and X-rays, and lo and behold, you can get a quick appointment for those if you pay a couple of £100 upwards. So this creeping privatisation of our health service, which remember we're paying billions for, is not really acceptable. We want value for money. That's the thing. We've got to keep an eye on these people who want to sort of basically asset strip what the taxpayer, what the people actually own. So the next thing is just some other news snippets. I'm sure most people would have noticed that the President of the United States said that the Make America Great organisation is a threat to democracy, and but basically accused millions of Americans of being virtual criminals. And I just feel sorry for the American public, that they're in this situation where they've got a president who pretended to try and unite the nation, but he was dividing them. And it's division in society is never a good thing, but maybe it suits globalist interests to put one section of society against another, but it's not good at all. And then we've got the Treasury, as we know, has been working on various options to basically deal with the cost of living crisis, and even the energy suppliers have written making certain proposals, but one of the proposals is said it's going to cost 100 billion over 3 years. Well, if that is the case, I would say that is a great underestimation, because in order to properly help people, it's going to be 100 billion over 1 year, because we already know that the government's committed 15 billion so far to help, and the initial plans to follow up on that have been another 15 to 30, but we know that in itself is not going to be enough. The Labour Party have come up with ideas, so the Liberal Democrats, so have other people. But when you've got not just ordinary people saying they need help, but you've got charities, you've got hospitals, you've got small businesses, large businesses, pubs, restaurants, you name it. It's basically the whole society which needs help, which I would say is far bigger than the cost we had of the COVID crisis. Now, the overall total costs of the taxpayer of the mismanagement by the government of the COVID costs was in excess of 400 billion. Now, you know, these sort of costs are unsustainable, and it's, you know, you just get the government more and more into debt, and you create inflation, rising interest rates, and many other issues. And if you know, we as a country needed time to recover from the expenditure and the costs of the COVID policies, you know, we can't afford to have these Ukraine policies, which are potentially going to be even more costly. Anyway, I said that I would just make a comment about the leadership election results, and Liz Truss got 80,000 plus votes, and Rishi Sunak got 70,000 plus, so a reasonably clear win for Liz Truss. All I can say is I think we're going to have to pray for our nation that she doesn't absolutely drop us in it, you know, with her foreign policy excesses. I just hope and pray that the people who advise her will advise her to be cautious. She's already been accused by other countries of, you know, being a dangerous foreign secretary. So let's really hope there's a change of tune. But you know, we've got, obviously we have slightly different emphases on policy between Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak. You know, a lot of people thought that Rishi Sunak was the more sort of technocrat, the more person who had the attention to detail. So let us hope that somebody persuades, you know, the Right Honourable Liz Truss to, you know, have attention to detail, look at the consequences of anything she does, and also have the courage to end her disastrous Ukraine policies, which Boris Johnson started and she's been supporting wholeheartedly. Anyway, that's the state of play on that. What we don't want is, she recently was saying that she was going to challenge the Prime Minister on their treatment of the Uyghur Muslims in a province of China, and there's been a pretty devastating UN report on that. But it's all a question of timing with these things. I mean, even the fundamentalist modern states have not been taking this issue up with China. So we need to sort of have some sense, and with all foreign policy issues, do what is actually in the interests of the United Kingdom and the interests of the British public. And if there's no point in making these pointless gestures and attacking and criticising other foreign powers who basically are in a position to damage us. And this is something which does need to be borne in mind. And in line with that, we had one of the former leadership hopefuls, Conservative MP Tom Tugendhat. He wanted the government to ban. He wanted the government to ban imports from that province of China. Well, is that going to be counterproductive? You really need to look at what is in the best interest. I should have said, by the way, that Rishi Sunak's votes were 60,000, not 70. So apologies on that. Anyway. One that's a sad thing which has happened, looking at world affairs, is the Chileans had a really forward-looking freedom-type constitution, and it's been rejected in a referendum, 62% against it, and only just under 40% for it. I would imagine that there means mainstream media probably campaigned against it. This is the thing you have to deal with referendums. Sometimes you can rise above that, like we did with the 2016 EU referendum. We won that against the odds, so it's never mission impossible, but we always need to be aware of the factors against us. And going back, another snippet of the news, to the energy situation. People have said, why are some of the Western European countries' energy prices so much lower than the UK? Well, it's a lot of reasons, but one of the main reasons is that their governments give more support financially, and the German government has just announced a 56 billion package to deal with rising energy costs. So, we were talking about figures earlier, and that 56 billion is not going to be a complete help anyway. So that's the sort of scale of things we're looking at. On a brighter note, most of us will be aware, but the Met Office are confirming that the average temperatures in the UK for June, July and August was equal to 2018, and somewhat, equal to some of the warmer summers we've had, which is, well, great for me. I like that, but there we go. Now, what about gun crime? We've had an increase. 29 out of 43 police forces have seen an increase in gun crime. Now, I'm sure when we look at the figures, they'll all be guns which are unlicensed, which nobody's got any record of. Now, this is the consequence you've got of banning the ownership of guns, because all you do is the criminal elements, they manage to get hold of guns and other weapons, and basically they don't bother to license them. And meanwhile, the law-abiding members of the population are criminalised if they have a gun, even if it's for their own protection. All I would say is look at some countries in the world, like, in the United States, gun ownership is pretty widespread. Now, the vast majority of Americans, they've got the gun there for their own protection, and basically they never use it. And it does help give them security, but that's a big issue, and worthy of a longer debate at some time. Now, anyway, I don't know what's happened to the chat, but I just hope the programme is continuing as normal. If it isn't, I do apologise. Now, I've been talking about the energy crisis and Ukraine and so on. Now, a number of us realise that we had to do something about this self-defeating set of policies the government has got in respect of Ukraine and Russia. And if you look at the prices from February of this year up until now, February is of course when the conflict started, and that's when the government started their sanctions and other policies such as arming the Ukraine. And what have we seen since then? We've seen astronomical rises in the cost of living, and of course we've had the huge energy price rises. We've had dreadful consequences for the economy, and inflation, interest rate rises, you name it, we've had that problem. You know, the Conservative leadership candidates have said this is the price we have to pay to support freedom and democracy in Ukraine. Well, they don't want debate on this Ukrainian policy, and you know, at the moment they're doing everything they can to shut down that debate. But if there was a debate, we'd know that the democracy in Ukraine is pretty similar to the democracy in Russia. They're both democratic countries. However, freedom in Ukraine is very, very restricted indeed. You've got no free media in Ukraine because any journalists who oppose the Zelensky government's point of view are basically shut down or locked up. So there's no free press in Ukraine at all. So that's a fallacy in itself. But having said that, the UK public are being asked to have these not just small sacrifices, but horrendous sacrifices for the Ukraine policies of the government, which are basically the fact they've embarked in a globalist and very dubious proxy war in Ukraine, which is of no interest to us as a nation to have an involvement in. So therefore, the public are fully entitled to vote on whether they give their consent to such a policy. And it's not a party political issue, although the Labour Party have been supporting the Conservatives, but it is something which we should have a referendum on, and therefore there is a petition which we started for the UK to become a neutral peacemaker. And I did a very recent article on this where I highlighted the fact that a number of people have since put forward the view, which isn't disputed, that Boris Johnson went to Ukraine for his first visit when the Ukraine was apparently about to sign a peace deal with Russia, and he apparently persuaded them not to sign the deal and gave them loads of aid, etc. That aid has continued since then. Now, that was a sort of rather reckless thing to do. He shouldn't have done it without the authority of the British public. I certainly think he should have consulted with the leaders of the other parties before doing so, but it's just unacceptable to involve the UK in a proxy war without the consent of the public. So we do have this petition. It's growing every day. So please promote this petition. I can tell you that it's been blacklisted by the old mainstream media, so they only get the free media who are putting this across. You know, because the old mainstream media and the government know that if people find out about this petition, they will sign it. And that's actually the main problem we've got with the petition. We need people to know about it so they can make their own free choice on actually signing it. So please, read my article, which is published in Unity News, and there you'll see the link for the petition, and please actually sign that. So the next thing I was going to mention is the situation with immigration and migration, which is got beyond a joke. And this is from the party who was supposed to be controlling immigration. Over the last 12 years, and particularly over the last couple of years, it's been a disaster, and particularly under Boris Johnson, because what's happened under Boris Johnson, a few 100,000 visas have been issued for people to come from Hong Kong. Then we've got over 89,000 visas to Ukrainian refugees. We've got upwards of 50,000 Afghan refugees, and a lot of these refugees are to do with absolutely terrible foreign policies, because if we hadn't had this interference in the Ukraine, and if we'd encouraged peace, there'd probably be hardly any refugees at all. So we've got a government, it's such awful foreign policies that they don't act in the interests of the UK, and they end up in the UK being flooded. And a lot of the other refugees are the results of UK policy on Libya, Syria, Iraq and so on. Policies which could have been done a lot more differently, and which didn't involve the consequence being refugees. So it's certainly a hope that Priti Patel, who's had a pretty pathetic record on migration and immigration, that she will be replaced. But again, let's see what happens on that. We've got a situation where now, and we must object to this, Priti Patel has said she's going to direct that local authorities can no longer object to taking their fair share of refugees, so to speak, and they'll be forced to take them, even though they haven't got the facilities, etc., to do so. And whilst we've got this these Ukraine policies and crippling our economy and so on, and the financial means of the government, we've got so many strikes building up in so many sections. I'm not going to go into all of them here because we're running out of time, but they're all a consequence of bad political management and bad financial management. We've got the party political conferences on. We've got a number of groups who are involved in something called Operation Overreach, which is to stop the overreach of government powers in respect of certain bills which would take away our freedoms and liberties. So they basically start, the Liberal Democrat one on the 17th of September, the Labour the 25th, and the Conservatives the 2nd of the 5th of October, and various other ones, but you would need to contact Save Our Rights to find out more on that particular issue. What we also will have happening is giving support to people like Dr. Liz Evans of the UK Medical Freedom Alliance in respect of the vaccine rollout, and getting surgeries on the NHS to stop all the restrictions they've got in respect of COVID, because a lot of them are still not got rid of them. We're sort of coming up to 1 o'clock, so I'm going to bear in mind that UK column starts a few minutes past 1, and some people want to watch that. I would like to mention something about the absolute hypocrisy of what's happened in Afghanistan. And you remember that we had hundreds of British service personnel who died serving the cause of freedom in Afghanistan, and many thousand injured, and the Afghan armed forces themselves lost, I think, 70 or 80,000 dead. Yet we've got, I'm not saying all, but 1 or 2 military staff who are currently serving the current government are saying, we must support sending arms, etc. to Ukraine. Those same people said absolutely nothing about letting the people of Afghanistan down. Over 25 million people were let down for the sake of, and this is an absolute fact, we only needed to keep about 3,500 troops in Afghanistan, and that would have been the morale booster to keep the Afghan army on side and so on. Yet we did nothing about the corruption there, we did nothing about the failure of the Afghan military to be paid. So it's almost as though it was, people were willing this thing to happen. But the bottom line is the Taliban never would have made it to power without the support of Pakistan and some Gulf states. And nothing happens in politics without money, just remember that. I think we should all call out the hypocrisy of people who say, we should help in Ukraine when we don't even give a penny to the anti-Taliban resistance. And we've got this absolute media obsession with Ukraine, that anything under the sun is twisted and turned to support the government's agenda of intervention in Ukraine, when it's absolutely not in the interests of the British people. Yeah, do you hear many stories about the people who served in Afghanistan who are disgusted by the government's withdrawal and letting the Afghan people down? Oh no, the only stories are about Afghan refugees and how we should let more people come, not about the much bigger issue of letting the Afghan people down, leaving a country which is in the hands of people who don't believe in allowing children and women to have education, to be treated equally and so on. So absolutely disgraceful. But anyway, I wish everyone a very successful end of the week, and I'm going to close off the programme now, and very much hope and pray that whatever happens with Liz Truss, that somehow she takes the advice and doesn't damage our great United Kingdom any further. So, see you next week, and certainly be looking forward to seeing as many of you as possible on Monday the 19th of September outside Parliament, where we will be doing our bit for COVID-19 vaccine safety. So all the best then. Thank you.